To our first item tonight, which is 12-10-19, which is referring to a public hearing that was held on December 9th, 2019 for consideration to rezone the Homewood downtown district from multiple zoning classifications to 3 new mixed-use categories: low-intensity district, medium-intensity district, and high-intensity district, to implement recommendations contained within the approved Heart of Homewood Downtown Master Plan. And that came before our last council meeting, in which we had a public hearing wherein the public input session was closed at that last public hearing. We did not take action on the item here in City Council, but carried it over for consideration and discussion tonight. And based on that very helpful public hearing, we are making some additional recommendations and changes to the zoning plan. I will read. We're actually making roughly 9 changes, but several of them had already been in place prior to the public hearing from last week, and we're making 4 additional changes. And after the council considers those additional changes to the plan, we will be requesting a move of this zoning plan back to the Planning Commission for consideration at a public hearing on February 4th, and then upon consideration of that on February 4th, to come back to City Council for a public hearing here back before City Council on March 9th. So there will be further consideration of this. Now, with that stated, let me go through some of the changes. First and foremost, a primary concern of many of the, and by the way, let me reference, I'm going to be referring to a report from Susan Henderson with Placemakers, who did obviously consult and handle the city's work with this zoning plan. All of these recommendations, all of these proposals, everything is on our website as of tonight. And again, this is for council's consideration here, will be recommended to go back to Planning Commission. Now, with regard to the changes, I'm going to briefly outline these, please, there's going to be plenty more discussion and deliberation, but they're all set out in the website. So let me, first and foremost, a primary concern of many of the businesses on 18th Street South and 29th Avenue South is the permitted residential use in our medium intensity district. And after hearing from many of you all from last week, and hearing from you all, many of you all before then, and after that part, we are recommending that the historic area of our downtown, being 18th Street from Oxmoor to 28th, and the block of 29th Avenue between 18th and 19th Street South, that we are recommending removing residential use from these areas at this with this proposal at this time. So that will be a new change and recommendation to the plan that will be going back to the Planning Commission. Also, with regard to parking, of which we heard many comments about parking concerns and problems here in the downtown area of Homewood. We are recommending now that we adjust the retail and service spaces up to 3 spaces per 1,000 square feet of net usable area. That is increasing that after hearing from the public with regard to those parking concerns. And again, all of these will be going back to the Planning Commission. Also, a couple of other items directly from the public hearing. There are some parcels within the proposed low-intensity district that do not comply with the proposed 8-foot minimum front setback on B streets identified in the zoning proposal. we are recommending removing the minimum and adjusting the maximum to accommodate parcels that have larger setbacks. And to do that, we're specifically recommending the new B Street line in Table 1 of Section D, Table 1, and this is all on our website, ladies and gentlemen, that it simply now read a 30-foot maximum to accommodate these changes. Also new coming from the public hearing is pertaining to 29th Avenue South. Because of the small parcel size and geometric constraints to providing parking if buildings are expanded, we're recommending adjusting the zoning map from high intensity to medium intensity for the parcels on the south side of 29th Avenue South between 18th Street and 19th Street. We're also recommending the same height restriction that applies to 18th Street at 2 stories. And I'm going to reference numerous items here, again, that have been on our proposed change list even before the public hearing, but I'll run these, I think there's about 5 more here. On Highway 31, where it's a C4B classification, we certainly received comments from property owners that the C4B high-rise zoning along the west side of Highway 31, who are designated medium intensity on the current draft zoning map, we heard concerns about that, and because of the height reduction from C4B to medium intensity, we concur with their concerns and are recommending designating the parcels between Highway 31 and 19th Place South and between 29th Avenue South and one parcel south of 27th Avenue South now as high intensity. Again, this will all be set forth on the zoning plan on our website. Also, Table 6 on our plan, which pertains to restrictions per district, the city received protest and concerns from property owners in both the low intensity and medium intensity districts that objected to the area restrictions on office, service, and retail for their lots. And we're now recommending that we amend Table 6 to exclude lots within each district that exceed 125% of the medium lot width and area. That was already in our proposed changes prior to the last week's public hearing, and all of these are remaining in the list of changes, and I just want to outline these to you. 3 more changes. We did have a typo on Table 5 on page 13. Restaurants should be a permitted use rather than a restricted use in low intensity. Second, concerns were raised regarding non-conforming lots. So we have recommended the inclusion of Section B 5D, which is an addition of adding modifications to our address non-conforming lot concerns. I'll go ahead and read this modification definition. Again, it's on our website, but I'll go and read it for you. Non-conforming structures can be maintained, repaired, and modified, provided such maintenance, repairs, or modifications do not increase, enlarge, or alter the non-conforming structure in any way which increases the structure's non-conformity, but any non-conforming structure or portion thereof may be altered to decrease its non-conformity. And that was in regard to specific objections and discussions and work this week to make that change. And finally, there was an objection to the administrative waiver proposed for dimensional flexibility in Section M2B, waivers and interpretation review, and we're recommending deleting Section M2B at this time. So those are the changes that we are recommending to the zoning plan. Again, that will be sent back to, well, I'll say sent back, we're considering sending back to Planning Commission with a public hearing for February 4th, for consideration and deliberation by the Planning Commission and the public, of course, and then back to the City Council for consideration in a public hearing on March 9th. Now, with all that said and an outline, that's one man's statement on all of this, so I will need to entertain a motion from City Council with regard to these changes being made and the referral back to Planning Commission of the revised zoning code.
So moved.
And the public hearing date of Planning Commission for February 4th, and also public hearing date for City Council of March 9th.
Second.
I'm sorry, who was it? Mr. Thames, and second by Mr. Gwaltney. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, so the item will be referred back to Planning Commission as modified for further consideration and deliberation by the public.